My name is Lin Lo. I am 17 years old, and the youngest of 3 brothers. My father is called Qinlei, which means, becomes great. He is an ex-captain in the Chinese army, a very strict and very old-fashioned man. With him there is no gray area, just black and white. My mother's name is Lion, which means, bright. She is a typical Chinese wife. Her husband is the breadwinner and the lawmaker, and whatever he says goes. My 2 elder brothers, Gong, which means, daring or adventures, is 24 and in the army, and Xing, which means, victory, is 29 and is in the army as well. They are both proud sons of my father. They were made for the army, my father used to say. Then we come to me. I did not want to go in the army at all or any of the services. I could not see the point of it, and all I ever wanted was to go and see the world, or become an author and write books. This, as you can imagine, was a great, and I do mean great, disappointment to my father, who used to call me a coward, and many more things, and tell me. In my day, boys went into the army willingly and with pride. They made their fathers proud, not like you. Moreover, as far as he was concerned, I was no son of his. Therefore, I was treated as one of the servants. My mother knew how I felt about everything, so she did her best to keep me out of the way of my father and brothers. I used to help her around the house, cooking and cleaning, even learning to sew. This pleased my father, as he could say, "Now I know you're not a real man like your brothers," and so the comments and sneers continued. I really thought sometimes that there would have been an accident, I mean with me, slipping off a cliff or something, accidentally of course. I think my mother was getting worried as well, for we knew how everyone thought about me. My brothers had no time for me either, as they agreed with our father all the way. As I was becoming an embarrassment to the family, and with my slight features and small stature, it was decided that it would be better if I were sent to England to my father's cousin. He had made a lot of money and gained great wealth and position in England, much to the disgust of my father and brothers, who were workers to the core. He had in fact very little to do with them. It was my mother who contacted him and explained everything to him, and asked if there was any possibility that he, that was me, could come and live with him and work for my keep, as it was no longer possible for me to stay there any longer, as she was beginning to feel it might be unsafe for me. My father's cousin had changed his name from Chun Lin to Charles Lindsay. That way he fitted more in the way of European life. His English was faultless, and he had told everybody that he was born in China of mixed parents, his father English and his mother Chinese. I think that was to just upset my father. Well, I arrived in England and proceeded to my cousin Charles' house, sorry mansion. It was that big. He was waiting for me when I arrived. He shook my hand and said, "Welcome to freedom." I just laughed. "Just call me Charles, okay, Ling." I'm not sure if he knew, but the name Ling means dainty and delicate, but I thought never mind, it was close enough. I got in and he took me to my room. He apologized as he said, "I'm afraid it's a cold lunch tonight. My housekeeper/maid has gone off and left me in the lurch. It appears she's run off with the boyfriend." I chirped up, "Well, I can cook. Would you like me to prepare something for us?" He looked at me and then said, "Well, if you don't mind, I'm afraid I can't even boil an egg." Therefore, that night we had pork chops, peas, mashed potatoes, greens and gravy. Well, Charles said, that was the best meal I have had in a long while. We sat down in the living room after lunch with a drink, when Charles said, "I will tell you what, Ling, if it's agreeable to you, if you want to do our cooking I will call that your keep money. How does that sound?" I replied, "That would be fine, Charles." Well, after a few weeks I was getting bored. Except for cooking there was nothing else to do. Charles was always at his office and there was nothing else I could find to do. I was wandering around the house one day. It was almost at the top of the house there was this room. While Nosy Me opened the door to find a lovely dark and light pink bedroom, I presumed it was the maids being away from the main bedrooms. As I knew no one was in, I started looking through the drawers and wardrobe. Well, what can I say, the wardrobe had these maid outfits in, that I was sure wasn't for real work. However, the effect they were having on me was startling. The feel of the material, it was so soft. Inside of the doors was a picture of Charles' maid. It was not like a maid that I had ever seen before. I started looking in the other drawers. The maid must have just left and took nothing that wasn't hers. There were frilly panties, stockings, suspender belts, basques, high-heeled shoes, everything. I just couldn't keep my hands off them. They felt so silky, they felt firm, constricting, and they felt sexy. Then I started to imagine what it would be like to wear them. I have no idea why I thought this. I had not thought of it before, or had I? I knew Charles would not be home for hours, so, not having a clue on where to start or anything, I had a go at dressing myself. First, the white bra. That was a feat in itself, trying to clip it together, but it did feel good as it pushed my small titties up so they looked more like breasts. Next, my frilly panties. I had only one small problem with them, but that was soon tucked away. The suspender belt was next, as I had just remembered I should have put them on first before the stockings. Next, the black seam stockings themselves. Well, what a feeling I got as they slid up my legs and I attached them to the suspender belt. The stockings were pulling on the suspender belt, and as I moved I could feel everything move. It was indescribable. Then there was this luscious frilly white petticoat, which as I pulled it on, gave me goosebumps all over my body. Then I slipped on the maid's dress. It had a zip at the back, and after a struggle I zipped myself into it. Feeling its tightness close around me, I felt I was in heaven. I then found a pair of high-heeled shoes to wear, which nearly caused me to break my ankle on more than one occasion that day. I was feeling amazing. I had never done this before, yet it felt so right. I stayed like it or a good hour. Just moving about made me feel wonderful. I pretended to dust with the feather duster, serve a drink by only bending at the waist. It was marvelous, but I knew I had to stop and change back, which I did, but I was well and truly hooked. Every chance I got I was up in that room trying everything on, including the basques and makeup. After a month or so, I had become very proficient in not only dressing, but also doing my makeup and styling my long hair. It was the best time of my life. However, as usual, there are always consequences. I knew Charles would not be home for hours, so, not having a clue on where to start or anything, I had a go at dressing myself. First, the white bra. That was a feat in itself, trying to clip it together, but it did feel good as it pushed my small titties up so they looked more like breasts. Next, my frilly panties. I had only one small problem with them, but that was soon tucked away. The suspender belt was next, as I had just remembered I should have put them on first before the stockings. Next, the black seam stockings themselves. Well, what a feeling I got as they slid up my legs and I attached them to the suspender belt. The stockings were pulling on the suspender belt, and as I moved I could feel everything move. It was indescribable. Then there was this luscious frilly white petticoat, which as I pulled it on, gave me goosebumps all over my body. Then I slipped on the maid's dress. It had a zip at the back, and after a struggle I zipped myself into it. Feeling its tightness close around me, I felt I was in heaven. I then found a pair of high-heeled shoes to wear, which nearly caused me to break my ankle on more than one occasion that day. I was feeling amazing. I had never done this before, yet it felt so right. I stayed like it or a good hour. Just moving about made me feel wonderful. I pretended to dust with the feather duster, serve a drink by only bending at the waist. It was marvelous, but I knew I had to stop and change back, which I did, but I was well and truly hooked. Every chance I got I was up in that room trying everything on, including the basques and makeup. After a month or so, I had become very proficient in not only dressing, but also doing my makeup and styling my long hair. It was the best time of my life. However, as usual, there are always consequences. My face must have been a picture. Charles, or Mr. Charles, had never spoken to me in that tone of voice before. It was a hard, commanding voice, which I will admit now, scared me. I didn't know what to do, but fear got the best of me, and I replied, "Yes, Mr. Charles the First would like to stay as your maid." "Good enough then. First get rid of your old clothes, and then change into something more befitting your new position, then come down and I will inspect you." "Well, off you go, girl." I came down within the hour. I had my old clothes in a black bag, and was dressed in my new uniform. I had my pink uplift bra on with matching suspenders and black lined stockings, a pair of pink very fluffy panties, a dark pink petticoat which flared right out, and a pair of black 4-inch heels. My dress was a typical sexy maid's outfit, so short that if I bent over I showed my panties off. I wore a white cap and apron to finish it off. I had applied some makeup including mascara, eyeshadow, lipstick, and blusher. I thought that would be enough. Big mistake. I went downstairs, knocked on the door and waited until I was told to enter. Mr. Charles was sitting in his armchair smoking his pipe. "Well, Ling Ling, put those clothes by the bin, you won't need them anymore. Now come and stand in front of me and let's have a look at you." After giving the once-over he commented, "Well, not bad, but your seams aren't straight at the back, and you're not wearing the right amount of makeup, and your hair's a bit of a mess. I want you looking stunning. Now I am going to let you get away with it tonight, but as from tomorrow for every mistake you will be punished with a paddle on your bum. 1 mistake 1 slap. 2 mistakes 3 slaps, 3 mistakes 10 slaps. Do I make myself clear, Ling Ling?" I replied with a curtsy saying, "Yes, Mr. Charles." I had never heard Mr. Charles speak to anybody or me like that before. I found it quite frightening. In addition, the thought of a paddling. He then told me to get him another drink. As I went to bend down, he shouted, from the waist, "I always want you to show off what panties and stockings to me or my guests." As I gave him his drink he said, "When I want you I will ring this bell, you come at once, then curtsy and I will tell you what I want. Is that understood, Ling Ling?" Again, I replied, "Yes, Mr. Charles." The following morning, I had to go to Mr. Charles' study. He was sitting behind his desk, and I had to stand in front of it like a naughty schoolgirl. "Right, Ling Ling," he said, "these will be your duties for the week, and next Monday I will give you your orders for that week. This week is your duties are, first have my breakfast ready by 7 a.m. Dress as you are now, then I will inspect you remembering what I said about punishment. Second, after I have gone to work change into your other housekeeper's clothes and clean up, do any washing and ironing that needs to be done. Third, by 4 p.m. start my dinner. Fourth, at 5 p.m. shower and change into your proper maid's attire. I will leave it up to you what you want to wear. Fifth, I will be home by 6:30, again I want you again ready for inspection. If there is any punishment due, you will receive it then. Sixth, I will eat at 7 p.m. You will eat after I have been seen to. Do you understand?" I replied with a curtsy and said, "Yes, Mr. Charles." "Right, off you go now, girl, and start." I went to my room terrified. What was happening to me? Why had Mr. Charles changed so much? Why the hell was I accepting all this? I lay on my bed and cried. The rest of the day went quite well. I made a mistake or two, but nothing was said by him. Eventually he went to bed and I was left to tidy up, get everything ready for the morning, then go to bed. I slipped off all my clothes, especially my shoes, as I had never worn high heels for so long a time before. I took my stockings and suspender belt off and undid my bra. What a relief that was. Then I slipped into my panties and nightie, set my alarm for 5:30 and crashed out. Come the morning I got up so tired. I went to my wardrobe and got out my black and white basque with matching panties and my black seam stockings, then one of my new maid's outfits. I have no idea why I was doing this, but I felt I had to, just for me. I put my bra pads in so they gave my titties a lift, making them look bigger. I then slipped on one of my petticoats, again making my maid's skirt stand out even more. I put my makeup on more carefully now and brushed my hair, leaving it loose but with a black bow tying it back. I then put on my high heels. As I was just leaving I saw some perfume on the shelf, so I dabbed a bit on my neck and wrists, and off I went downstairs to be inspected. As I arrived at the door, I could hear Mr. Charles inside. I knocked the door and waited for him to say, "Come in." As I went in, I curtsied. His reply was, "Well done, Ling Ling, you will soon learn, now let me have a look at you." He walked around me studying me, then he said, "A much improvement on yesterday, but your hair and nails are still a mess, so it's two demerits for you, I'm afraid. Well, let's get the unpleasantness over with first. Now I warn you, if you move then I add one slap on, you had two demerits, so that is 3 slaps with the paddle. Now bend over." I did as I was told. Mr. Charles said, "That's it, really bend over, I want to see those panties really tight on you." The next thing I knew was having one of the hardest slaps on my behind than I ever had, followed by another quick 2. My cheeks were burning, my face had gone bright red, there was a tear in my eye, but it made me tingle all over in a nice way. "Right," said Mr. Charles, "now you can serve breakfast." I looked at him and said, "Yes, sir," straight away. As I moved or bent down, I could feel the redness of my cheeks. It seemed to be giving me a small thrill. After a few weeks and several paddlings, some which I caused deliberately, I hastened to add, I was thoroughly enjoying what I was doing. Mr. Charles had bought me some new items of clothing and jewelry. One was a lovely mid-length fawn dress with a dark fawn collar and cuffs, and a small light coat that just buttoned up, showing my figure off, and several pairs of earrings. After I had thanked him so much, as I was so excited to get something new, he turned to me and said, "Well, Ling Ling, you have done so well over these last few weeks, I thought I would treat you. Tomorrow you can wear your new dress and coat, because I am taking you out to have your hair styled, your ears pierced twice, and your nail done. I have chosen what style and color your hair is being done, and the color of your nails, so everything has been taken care of." All I could say was, "Thank you, Mr. Charles, thank you so much, you don't know what this means to me." "Thank you again." The following week, Mr. Charles said to me, "Ling Ling, I am having a few people around for dinner Saturday night, so I want something special. I will leave that up to you, but I want you on your best behavior and in your best maid's outfit. Is that clear?" I replied, "Yes, Mr. Charles." Saturday came. I had cooked them a spaghetti bolognese, followed by a soufflé topped with strawberries and raspberries. I was wearing my best outfit, making sure my seams were perfectly straight. The dinner went perfect, and I heard one of Mr. Charles' guests, a woman named Mrs. Braun, commented on how nice everything was. Mr. Charles said, "That is down to my maid/housekeeper, Ling Ling." Mrs. Braun replied, "Where did you get her from, Charles? She is such a dear, and she is so pretty. Nothing seems to be too much for her, unlike my housekeeper, who seems to begrudge everything I ask her to do." Mr. Charles replied, "Ah, that's my little secret." Then he looked at me and smiled. I blushed back. I could not believe that they were all referring to me as she, a woman. I felt such a thrill at that I almost dropped a plate. After the evening had passed and everyone had gone home, Mr. Charles called me into his lounge and said, "Well, Ling Ling, you have surpassed yourself tonight. I am really proud of you." I blushed again, curtsied, and said, "Thank you, Mr. Charles. I really enjoyed serving you and everyone." The days passed to weeks, the weeks to months, the months to 2 years. I had never been so happy in all my life. I loved being a maid. I loved dressing up for Mr. Charles. I even loved the paddling when I was naughty. I looked forward to every day now. P.S. I found out later that my mother had not only written to Charles, but had also spoke to him. She explained about my father and brothers and how they thought I was very effeminate, and that they were thinking of just throwing me out of the house with nothing and letting me survive or not. So Charles told her not to worry because he would take care of everything for her. So that is when I arrived. I was put in the old maid's pink room to see if anything would happen. And the rest is history. I have been with Mr. Charles now for over 2 years. He is a wonderful man. Even though he still paddles me, I think we both enjoy it. He has asked if I would like to go the whole way, as he puts it, and become a real woman. He said that all he would want in return is for me to still work for him. Yesterday I agreed and he is making plans for the both of us to travel abroad to get to operations done, then I can be his real maid forever. I think my mother was right. I am not a man in a man's world, but a woman in a man's world, and I love it.